So you've been the public safety commissioner for about 3 years now. What are you most excited for, and what are you proud of?
Well, I'm extremely proud of the morale and improvements that we've made at the Department of Public Safety by changing the culture. I think we had a lot of issues if you look back 3 years ago, and even with driver services. Across the state, the average wait time was over 3 hours. So we've come in and we've revamped driver services and what we do there, and we've gotten those average wait times down to less than 15 minutes. We've introduced things like being able to make an appointment in order to avoid lines. We've gone to mobile ID, which is using technology to our advantage instead of just trying to do things the same old way. So that's been a huge accomplishment. You look at what we've done at MHP, we've had 4 consecutive trooper schools. It's been since the Fordyce administration that we've been able to put together 4 consecutive trooper schools in the first 4 years of a governor's administration. And I think that's important. We're trying to grow the numbers of MHP to get them up over 600 for the first time since the early 2000s. We've gotten record increase in salaries for our officers at DPS. Starting salary was over $50,000 for the first time, and so that certainly helped with morale. We've got increased salaries at the crime lab in the medical examiner's office, trying to recruit talent to stay in the state, and so that those operations can move better and improve public safety across the state. I can tell you when I came into office, the governor asked me to really do 3 major things at DPS. One was fix driver services. We needed to fix the crime lab and the medical examiner's office and try to turn around the backlogs that we had there. I can tell you at the ME's office, the backlog on autopsy reports went all the way back to 2010 when we got there, so we had a backlog of 10 years on autopsy reports. I'm proud to announce that we've eliminated that backlog up to 2020. And so we've been working tirelessly trying to get that accomplished. And the third thing that he asked me to do is really reach out to our local law enforcement agencies and let them know that as a state law enforcement agency with DPS, we want to work hand in hand with local officials. So we've gone around the state meeting with sheriffs and police chiefs. We've held multiple meetings from the coast to Tupelo with local law enforcement officers. But we've also hosted Mississippi's first Mississippi Public Safety Summit, where we invited public safety officials from across the state to come to Jackson and hear from nationally renowned speakers on leadership in law enforcement and ways to improve morale and ways to ensure transparency and better training. So it's really, it's been a major effort, it's been a team effort, and I'm really just proud of the folks at our department who have bought into what we're trying to do and make Mississippi safer.
When you think about the amount of officer-involved shootings that have happened, because there have been a lot since the beginning of this year, what are you seeing that makes you say we need to change either policy and the way things are done, if at all?
Right, so when we first got there was really no state law that dealt with how officer-involved shootings should be handled. And we worked with our legislative delegations and explained to them why we thought MBI should handle all officer-involved shootings across the state. And that legislation was passed. And since then, MBI has taken on that responsibility. And the other thing that we changed, and this was an internal policy, it used to be that whenever these things were investigated by MBI, we would not turn over our investigative files or any body cam footage or anything of that nature. And we made a commitment when we got here that we were going to release our files once the investigation was complete and the judicial process had been completed, as well as any body cam footage. And it's our belief and my belief that transparency is very important. And then when you have that transparency, it creates accountability, and when we have that accountability, we earn the public's trust. And that's really the driving force behind that policy and the decision that we made to do that.
So with Capitol Police now being a part of patrolling Jackson, what positive and negative are you seeing as a result of that?
Well, I think it's mostly positive. In the beginning, there was a bit of a transition. Capitol Police came over along with the MDOT law enforcement to DPS, and that was a major shift, bringing on 2 new law enforcement agencies to the department. And particularly when we looked at Capitol Police, and I'll admit, it was my fault. I was thinking more along the lines of state law enforcement, which I'd have been dealing with. And I failed to really consider the importance of community outreach. And so after they came on board and we started hearing some complaints from citizens, we started holding more routine meetings with public officials, community meetings, and trying to do a better job of outreach. And since then, Chief Lucky and his team have brought on a community affairs liaison that is out, in contact with the community, hearing their concerns. And so we've tried to be more of a community-based law enforcement agency probably than we were in the beginning, and I think that's been a very positive change. And the reality is, Capitol Police is a force multiplier for the city of Jackson. We're not trying to take over law enforcement in the city or Hinds County. What we're trying to do is work with the Hinds County Sheriff's Office, JPD, and any other law enforcement that wants to help with crime in the city of Jackson so that we can make it a safer city for all of Mississippi to come enjoy everything that the city of Jackson has to offer.
Got you. And you speak about, Jackson and the crime in the community. So are there other places, because a lot of people tend to just point to Jackson, are there other places in the state that are having a crime problem right now?
Absolutely. And I think because it is the capital city, a lot of times the focus on crime comes to the capital city, but I'm from Gulfport, and we have issues with crime there. I know there's issues with crime in other parts of the state, and we've really got to take a deep look. And one of the things that I've heard many say is we can't police our way out of some of these problems, and that's absolutely correct. We have a lot of young, youthful offenders that are coming from homes that are destitute, that they don't have any real good role models or influences, and we've got to reach those young people. And show them that there's a better way. So, and that's not just in Jackson. That's in other parts of the state. And it's something I've been passionate about my whole life. I used to be a youth court prosecutor for a time in Harrison County. When one of our prosecutors there went down with a heart attack, we came in and filled that role. And I could see then the importance of getting to these youthful offenders and trying to show them a better path.
So a lot of people like to also talk about stats. Are things trending in a positive direction now, or are we still kind of in a rut that we were in 2020? I
think we're seeing progress coming out of COVID. Obviously, we had a record number of homicides in the state. Coming out of COVID, we had record numbers of overdose deaths. Those numbers did drop last year, so I think we're seeing some positive trends in those directions. The legislature, again, and the governor have been very supportive of growing MBN, and our Deputy Commissioner Davis, along with Colonel Maxwell at MBN, have said, we can't just focus on drug crimes and convicting drug offenders. What we need to do is also be looking at alternatives such as mental health and drug courts and mental health courts and things to help turn these folks' lives around so they can be better parents, better husbands, better children and brothers and sisters for their communities.
So speaking in terms of community, what are 3 things you think we can look forward to in the future? Well,
one of the things that I'm becoming really focused on is trying to improve law enforcement training in our state. I think the reality is we have to do a better job of training our officers. Part of that is de-escalation, part of that is encouraging community involvement. One of the things that I really try to preach to our officers is, look, I want you to spend time with your family and I want you to be engaged in your community. If you're out there coaching little league teams and you're coaching football teams in your community, you're reaching out to some of these young people that might not have any other positive influences in their life, and you're showing them that law enforcement is here to help them. We're not the enemy, and we want to be part of the solution, not any problems for you. And I think it's important to send that message to the young people, and you do that by being engaged in the community. Another thing that we're going to really be working towards in the future is bringing back mandatory driver's education across the state. We talk a lot about active shooters and being prepared for that, and we've done a lot to prepare for active shooters. But the reality is we lose far more teenagers to fatal car accidents than we do any active shooters. And so I think we've got to get with the Department of Education and Department of Public Safety and come up with some plans to institute mandatory driver's education programs in our state. And then on the local level, again, it's going to be working with local law enforcement officials, trying to do more outreach. One of the things that we've tried to look at doing is have sponsored programs where we have sports leagues and things like that young people that don't have anything to do can come and play basketball or play baseball, and we can interact hand in hand with them.
And lastly, since Halloween is coming up, y'all are known for having a nice little event. Is that still going on this year?
I think it's going on this year. It's something that we've been doing for many years, and we do it across the state. They do it on the coast. Trunk or Treat's a great event. And those are the types of interaction that are really good for the community. It's good for law enforcement. It's good for the kids. It gives them a safe place to come. So we're definitely pushing for that. And again, one of the things I want to applaud our agency for and the men and women that work for DPS is coming up with these kind of ideas that bring the community and law enforcement together, and let's work hand in hand on making Mississippi safer.